What is the phenomenon that some people get promoted and then have immediate amnesia
Oh,
of
I
what
know.
it was like to do the actual frontline work?
And so in my mind, that was management and that was leadership. I didn't think I was cut out for it. I feel like I definitely had imposter syndrome. That's what I'm striving to be as a boss that they don't have to talk shit about.
Welcome back and happy Tuesday, turkeys. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 2 decades.
I am not apologizing for who I am or what I like or the people that I love.
How do I be a wife? How do I be a mom? And how do I be myself and all of that? You didn't see that coming, did you?
Good morning, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, turkey ducks.
Well, okay. Kayla doesn't know I started this or how this got here, so I'm gonna lay this. Whoa, I almost said I'm gonna lay the foreskin.
Oh my God.
I meant lay the foreground.
It's a stressful mishap.
Can't tell you why that was on my mind. Okay, well, so this topic we're talking about today is what I don't know, have a succinct, cool summary, but leadership, management, what does that mean? What's a good one? Is everybody cut out for it? Anyway, but how this began, the percolation in my mind is that not that recently, but a couple weeks ago, the president did was it the address to Congress or something? Some speech.
State of the Union? No.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. Clearly,
One of
I'm
the
very up to
speeches.
date. Some speech of some kind. Anyway, usually what happens is when these things happen, I watch about 5 minutes of them and then I just can't, which is par for the course every time, no matter who it is. And the reason that I have had spicy leadership thoughts is because there's some things that I just sort of would maybe do differently or have a kinder, gentler touch or a more hoorah America vibe than what feels antagonistic from the top. But I just wish I could write a letter. Dear congressional members, could you get your shit together for the love of God?
Mm-hmm.
This happens every year. So whoever the president is, whichever party that is, the party that aligns with him or her has their happy times. They clap, all the speeches, they stand up, blah, blah, blah. And then the other half sits there with like a deadpan face and crosses their arms and pouts. So, a couple of years ago, the Republicans were the little pouty babies and sitting there just the whole time. And now the Democrats are being the little whiny bitches. And I realize this is embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. Have you no respect for the just government that you work for, the structure that you were voted into, the tradition of America? They're all wearing their little America pins or whatever allegedly you're serving the country. Can you not model respectful behavior? Is that too much to ask? And I promise there were Republicans bitching the next morning that the Democrats didn't stand up and they didn't clap and blah, 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 and they were being sourpusses. When 1000% when the tables were turned, they acted the exact same way. I mean, do you know how many people I've encountered or supervisors or bosses in my life that I didn't enjoy or didn't agree with and I still was respectful?
Yeah, because you kind of should be and have to be, and that would be the right thing to do.
But no, we're just going to sit there and do. No one's you don't have to agree with everything that somebody says to be respectful, which I think is half of the problem with half of the things that are going on generally across the population. And these motherfuckers at the top can't even get their shit together enough to demonstrate how that could look and that we could all work together. You don't have to be the loudest clapper, but just stand up when someone enters a room. Can you just?
Politics
Anyway.
are interesting. I feel like they're in their own separate category of like what's acceptable and what's not. But I agree with you that it's embarrassing no matter who's doing it. Everyone's hypocritical. Why don't we
You
just all
shouldn't be in your own separate category.
correct? If we're on a united front in America, America, and you're all working for us, like you should all be standing up or just give some kind of effort and not being a little butthole.
So, dude, anyway, that set me straight to the moon. Just feel everyone keeps talking about we need to be more united, we need to work together. And I think the general consensus of America feels, no matter what your political alignings are, that you would just prefer, I don't know, maybe they'd get together and do their jobs and pass a budget per se. But just the visual of watching half the room seated and half the room standing and clapping was just the metaphor of how ineffectual their leadership is. And then it just got me thinking about leadership and management in general. And here we are.
Wow. Seeing that, I didn't know all the backstory about that. I found it interesting because I do feel like we all experience good leadership and bad leadership. And I feel like there's a difference, just to break it down, between a leader and a manager, first of all. Like, that's a huge difference. Like, a manager to me is managing my time, which no thanks. They're basically just force feeding everything that's coming down from the top. And they're trying to manage me, manage my time, manage my results. And it's not any type of growth or development from them. You know what I mean? They're just there to be there, and they take up space, and they just, versus a leader,
sure.
you're doing the actual like growth and development, and you're being empathetic, but also holding them accountable. Like, there's a lot more to it than just get the job done or do this and delegate that.
Which, I mean, even that goes back to my example of all of those people are allegedly in positions of power or authority or whatever, however you want to word it. And I would argue a far few of them are actual leaders.
Well, and I would argue that in this particular category that we're talking about, which is American politics, actually, probably all politics and politicians are just, there's just so much crap involved and corruption that I just feel like on both sides, I just feel like it's a whole different ballgame up there. It is really sad. I don't like that it is how it is, because it doesn't serve the American people.
For sure. And definitely what you were saying on my personal life level, not every supervisor of mine has been a leader, for sure, just because they were structured into a position above me in the hierarchy of whatever organization or company I was working for. Definitely does not mean that they had leadership qualities developed. Also, for the sake of the fact that you and I both still need day jobs, I have the caveat that I am referencing old experiences / anecdotal information that I have from other people. Because honestly, really and truly, right now, my immediate program manager, I have a lot of respect for. I mean, everyone has their personality traits and strengths and weaknesses and things like that, but I think she genuinely cares about the people that she's working with and tries to do the best that she can with what she has. So yeah, none of my grumpus is related to my immediate microcosm, which I'm very thankful for because I've had some turd alerts in my life.
And it makes a huge difference in your happiness at your job.
So what you said, the micromanagement, that is the biggest murderer of my productivity.
Yes.
It makes me so frustrated.
I agree. I don't have any grievances at all. It's just interesting because I've recently moved into I would call it management position, leadership position. It sounds a little too high. I'd like to consider myself a leader, but I'm technically in management now. I'm not at the tippy top. I'm just like one step above being there. I just notice a lot of things for myself that I'm trying to be hyper aware of. And I was reading this really good book. Did I tell you about this? The Dichotomy of Leadership.
No.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good because it's so hard to balance. Like I was saying, like you have to have empathy, but you have to hold them accountable. You have to, give them the bad news, but soften it. And like, I'm a big, like, what's the why behind the message type of person. Because if I know the why, then I can be a little bit more empathetic to what my bosses are telling me. Then everything is a trickle down, and you just have to figure out, okay, how can I present this? Because maybe I don't even agree with it. A lot of the times I don't agree with it, but like I got to present this to my team now and make it digestible and still support them and, let them know in a professional way that things aren't always perfect. AKA, I don't really like this either, but I can't say that. But like, I'm here to help you and we're going to get through this and here's some things to make it work or whatever the case is. It's just, it's balancing people and business, at least in my circumstance. Like, how do we get results and also a happy, like, environment or culture?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I knew that you had kind of transitioned out of frontline into more of a supervisory role. So what hesitations did you have moving or even applying or taking the job or assuming that position?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, my first hesitation was money.
Yeah.
Because in my frontline, I'm in sales. There, not all the time, but there are a lot of times where the salespeople could make more than the managers, which is not like I'm not mad about it, but I just had to consider the potential pay cut. But the other thing after that is really, I'm not the person that's going to walk into the room and all eyes are on me. I don't like to draw attention to myself. I
Yeah.
don't need to, nor do I typically want to be the speaker at the front of the room. And so in my mind, that was management and that was leadership. And
Yeah.
I didn't think I was cut out for it. But then you get into, like, for me, I do lead some meetings, but it's minimum. And now that I've gained a relationship with my team, it's not as scary because I know that because I've sat down one on one with them. And the one on ones are the best part for me because I can have conversations like this. And it's like, hey, like I've been in your shoes. I've done this for 10 years. Like, this is what I would maybe do. And I feel like I have a way of telling them, like, try this and not make them feel stupid. You know what I mean? Because some
Yeah.
managers could be like, I don't know why you would do this. You should really do it like that. It's like, have we thought about, going on with this approach? So I think my strength is in my individual coaching sit downs. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, I can do this. So my biggest hesitation was, besides the money and making sure that works for my family, is I would never consider myself, like I said, the speaker at the front of the room. And I thought that's what you had to be like a manager or a leader.
Yeah. Yeah. That totally makes sense. And you have such a strength of having been in their shoes, having had different managers, experiencing things you did not respond to. Is there anything about it that you didn't expect or that kind of caught you off guard?
Yes, I would say being on the front lines for so long and understanding what happens on a day-to-day basis. I used to sometimes get annoyed with the message that would come down from corporate. On the manager side, it's like pulling back the curtain and I'm like, okay, I I feel you, but I still have to bring you this message from the top and we can't do anything about it. Like that there's more things that I guess, like, there's a lot of flexibility in how I manage people, but there's still a lot of stuff that just from a business perspective, which makes sense, you have to do, and you have to look at numbers in order to do that. And it's just like, oof, it's trying to balance again, like the people and the circumstances that we don't see behind the charts and the numbers and the recordings, or not recordings,
Yeah.
the reports, all the
Yeah.
reports.
That makes sense.
So
Been the hardest part, just finding your rhythm. I mean, you haven't been in this position for that long, so I'm sure there's still things that are developing, but
I feel like I definitely had imposter syndrome the first
mhm.
month. I was like, who am I? Like I'm meeting these people and I'm talking to, my sales team, and then I'm on these calls with VPs and presidents and all the things. And I'm like, I'm at this table now. Like this is crazy. And like who put me here? But again, now that I've gotten to know everyone, it takes me a little bit to warm up and get comfortable. I feel a lot better, but that was a big struggle in the beginning, is total imposter syndrome. And making
Yeah.
sure I didn't want to come in and be a new annoying boss. Like I didn't want to come in and be a disruptor. I didn't want to come in and, you have to be careful with how you make your impressions because that sticks with people. So that was a big, like I had to tiptoe and figure out like what that looks like.
I mean, I haven't been a supervisor before, but even just coming into a new system, sometimes it can be really good because you have a fresh perspective and
Mhm.
everybody else has sort of just been in the flow of what they've been doing. But then you have to balance that you're new and you maybe still don't know anything and how to work those things in and build
Mhm.
credibility maybe before you start criticizing the structure.
Yes. Or like they would just ask me questions and they would be things that I should know that I didn't know. And I just don't like knowing the answer. But of course, like you have to learn so many different things. So it was it was definitely a transition. And now I feel like I'm past the bulk of that, even though I still learn something new every day. But
Yeah.
I think at least I have the relationship side of things down. That makes me feel more comfortable. I just
Yeah.
don't want to be the boss they talk shit about. And it's not like, and yes, that's personal and ego, but also like that's what I'm striving to be, as a boss that they don't have to talk shit about. Like I'd like to leave and then be like, man, I hate that she just told us that, but I get it and she said it cool and like I respect her for that. Or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That's my goal. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I strive to do.
The other thing I was pondering is okay, you're obviously very in touch with what it's like on the front line. I know that there are some people in companies and things that haven't done the frontline job before, and I guess you can argue that you don't have to necessarily do that to understand how to manage people and systems and blah blah blah. But like, why? What is the phenomenon that some people get promoted and then have immediate amnesia
Oh,
of
I
what
know.
it was like to do the actual frontline work?
Drives me crazy. They used to have it all the time in a previous employer. And I was like, do not let me be this way, like in my head.
Hmm.
And I think here's what maybe surprised me. You're so inundated with everything that's going on, and there's so much more that you don't realize goes on in the background that we
Yeah.
kind of like shield the sales team from.
Yeah.
It becomes very overwhelming, and I feel like people have a tendency to get so bogged down from the crap coming down. And it's not even crap, it's just a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That they kind of lose sight of that because they just have all this pressure coming down on them to, you know what I mean? I can see
Yeah.
how it happens. I'm fighting that battle every day. Like, remember what it's like. Don't
Remember who
forget.
you are.
Exactly. So, but I have had some managers in the past where it's like, I mean, a weekend and like they didn't understand how to do something. I was like, you just did this 2 weeks ago. Like you just wrote a contract. Like, what? That was dumb.
Don't you think sometimes that it's somebody that got into that position for the power grab, and now that they got what they wanted, they're just ready to lord over people?
Yeah. Or I feel like in their head that was the next move and they weren't equipped to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe they weren't even that good of sales anyway. Or maybe they
Okay,
looked good on paper, but they weren't
that's
actually good.
yes. That's another thing is why do so many companies and organizations allow people or foster people to fail up? Why does that happen so much?
Again, I think there's a dichotomy of the balance of promoting within and being all about culture and your people
Yeah.
and not promoting the people that aren't ready for it. Like in my mind, a leader should get most, if not all, or at least a few of the people that they're managing at a place where they could fill their shoes or take their place at any moment. Like that's what we
Yeah.
should be doing is fostering them, whether they want to or not. That's totally their decision. But it's like that's what I feel like my job is to mentor them to get to a position where if they wanted to one day they could be a manager.
Hmm.
But I feel as though sometimes companies will pick someone because they're within instead of maybe hiring someone who's more equipped for the job outside of the organization, which I
Yeah.
get, but also it's like maybe that person just needed more time and maybe that was a mistake to promote them, you know?
Do you also think, in my experience in my old jobs, it felt like the people who were really good at being the front line, they almost didn't want to promote them because they would lose their productivity. So
100%.
it sometimes seemed like, well, this person's been here forever. They understand the deal. Their numbers aren't that great, but we like them, so we'll promote them and we'll keep the worker bee working.
100%. That happens a lot, at least in my industry and with my old employer. Again, all of this is my previous employer. And nothing against them. It happens and it is what it is. But yes, there's the people that are really, really good that they don't want to lose that person
Hmm.
who's really, really good. And so they'll promote the next best because it's like, okay, well, we can have best of both worlds, but really it's not the same thing.
Remember that even at my old job, I wanted to do a lateral transfer. So it wasn't a promotion. It was just a lateral move into a different role, same job, different role. And my supervisor had the audacity to tell me that they quote couldn't afford to lose me in that position because they didn't have somebody else that could do it. And I was like, I want to have a lateral move so that I can understand this role and this role, and then eventually the third role that was within that agency, so that I would be in a position later to develop into a manager if it ever were appropriate, but just to expand my capabilities.
Mhm.
And also because I need changes to stay engaged. And I have never been more demotivated by a statement in my entire life. I think he was so naive that he thought that was a compliment.
Mhm.
And I think maybe there are some people who want to feel that they're so important and they can't be lost or whatever. But in my mind, I'm like, bro, your role is to help me come alongside me and help me develop if you truly are going to be a leader and not just my supervisor.
Yeah.
And
But he
I
instead, like, basically handcuffed you and didn't
yeah,
want you to grow.
just pinned me in a corner. And so, what he thought he was saying and what I heard were two totally different things. Because what I
Oh.
heard was, okay, bro, so because it's easier on you, you want to hold me back professionally. And what I'm also hearing is that I should, in fact, not do such a good job because that is going to limit my future potential. That was the
Crazy.
beginning of the end at that job. Okay, this is the other side, not side tangent. This is the other adjacent thing to this. Obviously, not everybody can be a manager, and also not everybody can lead. So, do you think that there are some people who just naturally are drawn to wanting to move up as a personality type? Do you think some people are fine to be the worker bees? Because what I find for myself is that I constantly need a challenge, and I've never been a supervisor, but I find myself being a lot of times in the position of training new staff or trying to implement a new process or teach people this. So some of that stuff is sort of happening on its own. And I wonder, one, I sometimes wonder, am I doing this because I want the like power and control grab? I think I just get nervous and hypercritical about stuff sometimes because it does feel good to be
Helpful or
respected,
needed?
yeah, or admired. Part of me also thinks, okay, going back to good old JP, Jordan Peterson, he talks about how it is rewarding socially as a human, as a social creature, to do well within your social structure. So maybe it's not a bad thing that it feels good.
Yep.
But I don't know. I wonder about that a lot. Not everybody can want it. Does everybody want it? Is it just a fixture of my personality? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think you're right. I don't think everyone wants it. Well, first of all, not everyone should do it, but I feel like there are people that are just fine with where they are, whether that's because they don't want the added stress, whether that's because they actually have like fulfillment within their role currently. I think that's completely normal. For the longest time, that was me. And then, I mean, really, the most motivating factor for me was to get my weekends back.
Yeah, yeah,
If that wasn't a factor, I don't know if I would have gone into management. Like it was time and it's great, but you know what I mean? So that was one thing. But
yeah.
I do feel like a lot of people in this world, unfortunately, maybe aren't the right people for, how do I say this? They maybe aren't leadership material to a T, but they want the title. They're title grabbers. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yes,
they're just doing it so they have this title to put on their LinkedIn or to put on their resume. And I think those are usually, not all the time, but usually those type of people may not be the best fit for the job, but they're there because, again, they maybe look good on paper or they interview well or whatever the case might be, but they're complete title grabbers. And that's the basis of the depth. That's where it stops. And that's
yes.
unfortunate.
So that ties in. Jason and I went and saw Jordan Peterson at one of his live lectures or whatever the right word is. And he was talking about a bunch of stuff, but he touched on this idea of psychopathy. So if from the psychology world, you have your cluster B personality disorders, which are really briefly narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic, borderline, and antisocial. And then I guess there was somebody else he went into talking about the dark tetrad, same concept, different language, like Machiavellian. I don't know
Mm.
the other two
Mm.
for tetra. Anyway, but it was interesting because he said specifically those are the people who, for whatever their personality issue is, their ego, their whole drive is to get the title, get the position because
Mm.
it boosts their ego. The narcissist, everything's about me. Or if you're more of the sadist or Machiavellian type and you want to lord over people. So these people get in there and they tend to be highly social and
Mhm.
highly effective at currying favor. And then it was so funny because he specifically said social work, but he was talking about the different fields that these people end up in. He's like,
Mm.
obviously they're the minority. I think he said statistically in any given population, they say the average is about 3%
Okay.
of the population fall into these types of personality disorders. Give or between 1 and 5%, I think
Mhm.
he was saying. Anyway, it was just very interesting because it's true. You can see it. if you kind of step back, these people who get into these positions specifically just so that they can have their ego boosted. And I don't know. All of it just, again, it just really got me thinking. When you look at big picture, big government, how many of those people are just there because of the power and the title and the people that they get to rub elbows with? And then on a micro level in my own life at my old agency, how many times did I see people who wanted to be promoted? So again, they could rub elbows, have the title. I had lunch with the chief, title drop the people that were around them. And you can see it in the people that want to be, you can see that the leader is not, you can see that the manager is not the leader when they're mad, when their underlings are doing things that they aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, I specifically remember there being times where I would go and bop around with the judges or had good relationships with the law enforcement people, intentionally fostering those things because they helped me do better at my job.
Yep.
And because I just like building relationships with people. But I remember them one time, I think it was my deputy chief, getting annoyed. I could feel the annoyance that I was on a first name friendly basis with the U.S. attorney for the area. Like we were in the courtroom and my deputy bopped in to spy on me or whatever. And I just went up and was like, "Oh, hey man, how's it going?" We were just chit chatting because we'd worked on a case previously before he'd been promoted. And I remember specifically them coming up to me and being like, "How do you know him?" I was like, shouldn't you be fucking glad that I can come in here and represent our agency appropriately and professionally?
Yeah, no.
But dude, the immaturity and the insecurity come out so hard, and maybe that's the root of it. But I don't know. I just keep having these feelings with myself of I don't really want to be a supervisor in my current agency because things are nerve-wracking right now. But kind of checking in with myself. Am I trying to be that person? Am I trying to have an ego grab or a power grab? Like sometimes I have really big opinions. And I've caught myself before being a little vocal about things that I think are dumb. And then I sometimes take a step back and wonder, am I being a little arrogant? Or I don't know. I'm learning I'm a very intense person, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I am trying to balance it with humility and maybe reminding myself other people know things. But also sometimes people don't fucking know things.
No, they don't know things.
It's so hard.
It's so
And I'm
hard.
so hyper aware of myself, so I'll just be like, okay, am I doing too much right now? Or is this person actually an idiot? And I think sometimes it is that they're actually an idiot. But I'm so afraid of being
that person.
Yes, the loud mouth, pain in the dick, power grabber. Anyway.
I totally get it. It's a freaking ride trying to navigate everything and try not to be not to be the person that you don't want to be. Like, I don't want to be a bad manager. I don't want to be the one, you know what I'm saying? It's hard.
And how? Anyway, if anyone has any tips, let us know. If you're a manager, what are your manager thoughts? If you're a worker bee, what are your worker bee thoughts? Are you the person that wants to move up? Are you the person that wants to stay where you are?
If you have any leadership books that you recommend, we'll drop them below.
That's a good one. Definitely a good one.
Or how to deal with bad leaders. I'm just kidding.
Everything keeps going back to what we talked about with 12 rules of balance between two opposing forces.
And that's what the book is, the dichotomy of leadership. It's the balance of, it's the same thing, essentially.
So interesting. Well, thank you for having this talk with me, because like I said, it's been swirling around my brain ever since I got grumpy about some people, the behavior in government, not being what I would want in a leaders. Maybe I have a personality flaw that I think I could do it better, but until next week. Love you, bye.
I'm on 2%.
Man, okay, bye.